3 tropical systems in the Atlantic and 27 minutes to go before the August record is set for no named storms for the entire month. And then you got to go back to the beginning of July to get the last named storm. So we're going to focus on that. We've got the Labor Day holiday weekend coming up. I mean, there's just so much to talk about that. Well, we're going to talk about it tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is always brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area with everything you need in case the weather gets bad and you lose your power. You need a generator, you get flooding, you need a new pump, or you might want to make your yard look good considering how it probably looks right now, which is not too promising after the dry conditions of this summertime. So they got mulch, topsoil, and more. So head over there. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. And the website is...
He's back. OmniTrueValue.com.
Yes. Let's see. You are back. How you feeling?
I'm here. Now, when I talked to you yesterday on the phone, I said I was in the midst of a WNEW-FM fever.
Right.
In other words, if you remember where WNEW-FM is on the FM dial, that's how high my temperature was yesterday. 102.7, ladies and gentlemen. Oh.
Well, it came and went quickly. I guess you blew through the fever in 24 hours, which is good.
Yeah, I don't, as our viewers know, I have not been feeling the best over the last couple of weeks. I've been having coughs and problems with my voice, but I think it's because I had the fever. The fever just like exorcised everything out. He said, "All right, enough with this." And kind of like, Joe, it's kind of like what you talk about sometimes with the weather. We're stuck in a pattern for weeks and weeks and weeks. Then all of a sudden we have a pattern changer, courtesy, let's say, of a tropical system in the polar regions. And that kind of like, I guess, was what happened yesterday. I went through 24 hours of hell and then pretty much came out of it last night late into this morning. And I really feel tremendously better this evening.
Well, the doctor once explained it to me. You have your first kid, and the kid runs a fever, so you just you rush him to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Why are you in such a panic?" "Oh, my kid has a fever." So, that's the body's way of basically getting rid of. It's fighting whatever infection you have, and the fever does what it's supposed to do. Basically, like you said, it cleanses the system. It burns everything out, and then then you're better.
I was so dead to the world yesterday afternoon. I called Renata. I said I'm sick. I'm sick, and I could barely move, and I went right back to bed. And then the phone rang about 15 minutes later. And it rang and it rang. I said, "I ain't getting up for this. I ain't getting up." It's probably a robocall. It turned out to be my daughter. My wife told my daughter. My daughter's trying to call me. I'm not answering. She's getting hysterical. Then the next thing I know is my son comes to the house. I'm saying, "What the heck's going on here?" And he administered a COVID test. He said, "Get up, Dad. I got to check you for COVID." And Renata came home like an hour earlier than what she was expected to. So, I mean, I threw everybody into a tizzy yesterday, and I said, "Why were all of you people going nuts?" And the bottom line was, and it's true, you never get sick. You never have this kind of effect. You never have a fever. They probably thought I was about to die.
Yeah, well, in which case, you got to figure, they opened the drawer, made sure the life insurance policy was there, and that it was signed, and that it was paid up to date. So once that was relieved, you could go on your merry way.
Yes.
And I'm glad you're better. We should tell everybody tomorrow night Joe is not going to be here because it is his wedding anniversary. Him and Sophia Loren. So.
Hey, there you go. Ever see a happy couple like this? Look at that.
A couple of what?
Well, sometimes when the marriage doesn't go well, in a newspaper you'll see the caption read "in happier times."
Yes.
but
In a in a
but
in a previous existence.
yes, but I'm very happy to say that we are together. We will have been together. We tied the knot 38 years ago. Believe it or not, I still can't believe it.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. And
I don't understand.
in your absence tomorrow, Bill Goodman will be on. So it'll be me and
There you go.
Bill
See,
Goodman. He's
it'll be the Joe and Bill show.
he was able to free himself up, and he's going to be joining us. The only thing about tomorrow, folks, I'll just give you a heads up now. 7 o'clock for a start time tomorrow, not 7:30. 7 o'clock. Okay.
That's interesting. I was going to say to myself, maybe I can tune in, but I can't because I'm going to be at the show, the Billy Crystal show tomorrow night, Mr. Saturday Night. And interestingly, that show will begin the same time Joe and Joe begins at 7 o'clock tomorrow night at the Nederlander Theater. So, Joe, there's no way I'm going to be able to tune in on Joe and Joe tomorrow night. I would, if I did, I'd probably interrupt Billy and they'd stop the show and tell me to shut my phone off.
Well, if you did, you would probably also wish you still had the fever because your wife will kill you.
Yeah, it's true. Interestingly, I mentioned this to Renata. Tomorrow, the weather in the tri-state area tomorrow almost exactly will match the weather that we had on our wedding day in 1984. It was beautiful. Blue sky, puffy fair weather clouds, low humidity, sunshine, temperatures in the 75 to 80 degree range. And tomorrow will be a repeat. It'll be deja vu all over again tomorrow.
Steve LaPointe wishing you a happy anniversary as he bangs the super chat tip jar tonight. Thank you, Steve. Happy anniversary, Joe and Renata, while in New York City, MYOB. Mind your own business.
Yes. Well,
so,
it's interesting. We're arriving tomorrow. We'll be in Broadway and Times Square, which has now been, starting tomorrow, is a gun-free zone, Joe.
Oh, well, because that, yeah, okay. Let's roll on. And
let's move on to that.
Yes, let's move on. So, you put up, I don't know if you're going to share it tonight. I already have sharing capability if you want to. But you went back and we are 19 minutes. Actually, we're not going to have a named tropical storm in 19 minutes. And the reason why I'm saying 19 minutes is that 8 o'clock is 0Z, midnight Greenwich Mean Time. So we would have needed to have a tropical storm named by 8 o'clock tonight in order for that nameless August not to happen in the record books. But obviously that is not going to be the case. We do have... And I will, let me bring the map up first. And you'll see it here from the Hurricane Center. I'm going to make myself teeny weeny small in the corner. Okay, so this way I know I'm still there. 3 systems that they're watching. The one that's in the central Atlantic, that's between New Jersey and the Azores, is likely to become a tropical depression or a tropical storm before the one we've been watching in the tropical Atlantic, which is pretty much still, it's gotten better organized to an extent. The center is elongated, but it still has not, closed off a tight center where they can classify it either as a depression or a tropical storm. So you see those 2 red areas. So I think the one that's between New Jersey and the Azores is probably going to wind up getting named before anything else. And then the system off the African coast, which is actually quite large, looks interesting on the satellite now. But in about a day or 2, it's going to be running into hostile conditions because of what's going on to the north. So that probably will not develop into anything down the road, or if it does, it will be very brief. But you put up, you went back and looked at 1961. I saw your post, and I thought maybe you'd want to elaborate.
Now,
okay, hang on a second. Let's bring it up on the screen. And there you have it. So yes, you are right there on the screen. So 1961 was the last time. Well, no, not the. Was this the last time, or you just picked the 61 instead of, was it 1997? Was the other
No,
year?
I chose 61 was chosen because 97 I think we had maybe 3 or 4 storms after August during September and October, but 61 just to show you that even though it could be very quiet, and I do mean very quiet. I mean, look at this list here. We had one storm, Anna, 1961, July 20th to the 24th, 100-mile-per-hour winds. That was actually a hurricane. Then we went all the way through the rest of July into all of August, and not until the second day of September in 1961 did we get our second storm. That was a hurricane. In fact, it was a moderate storm, a major hurricane, 120-mile-per-hour winds, and that was Betsy. But then in quick order, and this again, all of August and the latter part of July, nothing, nothing. And then right after we had Betsy, we had Carla, we had Debbie, we had Esther. Storm number 6 on this list was looked like it was just a tropical depression or a system that never really got started to get to a tropical storm or hurricane. That was from the 12th to the 15th. Then on the 30th through October 9th, we had Francis, 110-mile-per-hour winds. The strongest storm, by the way, as you can see on the list, Joe, waited until, my goodness, the end of October. Hattie, a major hurricane, 140-mile-per-hour winds, October 22nd, 27th through November 1st. No, we didn't have Hattie in August. We didn't have her at the beginning of September. We had it at the end of October. And then we can't add 2 more storms, Jenny and Inga. And then that was it. But it shows you we had, once we got into September, we had 7 tropical disturbances. 5 of them were hurricanes. We had a few more after that into October, November. So what I was trying to point out here is even though the season to date has been very quiet, watch out, because in some years, once you get into September and October, things can suddenly ramp up or rev up. And by the looks of things right now, Joe, we have 3 possible tropical cyclones or potential tropical cyclones that may be developing in the next few days.
What's interesting about this particular year was a couple of things. First of all, it suddenly just went nuts for the month of September, where you had 7 named storms, and then it shut down for the month of October for the most part. It wasn't until the very end of the month that you've got the 9th storm. So the 8th storm was September 16th to the 20th. The 7th storm was, now for some reason I'm not quite understanding, why is the 7th storm, Francis, the date on it? Well, anyway, the bottom line was that it shut down again for the month of October. But the interesting one that year, by the way, was Hurricane Esther, which came up the East Coast as a strong Cat 3, almost got to the south shore of Long Island when it took a sharp right turn, and then it did a broad loop, went out to about 65 or so, then moved south, then moved back west, and then turned back northward and passed over Cape Cod. So that was one of the odder storms. And then Hurricane Carla in the Gulf of Mexico went into Texas as a rather powerful, strong Category 3. It might even have been a Category 4 when it made landfall. My memory is not serving me correctly, but it was a fairly, it was still a rather robust year when you consider that you sat through the whole month of August with next to nothing going on. And by the way, a few people have asked this question, trying to make some sort of correlation between that and
the winter.
And the answer is no. Okay, it's an easy answer. It's 2 letters, N-O. No.
N-O. If it were that easy, we'd be able to start jumping up and down right now and saying, all right, here's the definitive winter forecast based upon the lack or paucity of tropical cyclones through the month of August. No, it just doesn't work that way.
No,
Sorry.
and you know what? If it did work that way, As soon as we figured out that it was working, it would stop working. So
Exactly.
so that could
Just like with the Siberian snow cover in October, right?
right, which is coming up, believe it or not. Ken Musillo, also a early super chat hit tonight. Thank you, Kenneth. Most appreciated. Kenneth is just itching for winter weather. He's always sending me YouTube videos of various snowstorms that hit the New York area in time. Okay, in time. But in the meantime, why don't we take a look? Let's go to. I've got the satellite loop of all the shenanigans out in the tropical Atlantic, so we might as well go to that and take a look and see what's happening. And let me make myself teeny tiny again in the upper corner. So there. And here you have it.
I don't know why, Joe. When you said shenanigans, I don't know. Do you remember this? There was
The
when we were
game.
growing up a kid. You remember the show, the game show on Saturday, Shenanigans?
Mm-hmm. And then
Who was the host? Stubby K. Stubby K was the host of Shenanigans.
that
Anyway.
I did not remember.
Okay.
I would not have remembered that. Okay. So
you don't meet too many people named Stubby.
No, you don't, thankfully. All right. So here's your. It's been virtually the same spot now for 3 days, and the convection was increasing today, but it really didn't change very much today in terms of structure. Off the African coast, you got this rather large complex of clouds. It's probably somewhere up here in the northern part of this large area of cloudiness where we have some sort of maybe a mid-level circulation of some kind. But and then the angle makes it kind of tough to look at. The other thing is the third system is up in here. And you could, by the way, if you look to the west, you could see that there's an upper low that is sitting uh, off the North Carolina coast there that's spinning around, and then you've got convection that's out to the east with a surface low that's developing, and the Azores are right out here, but would make a nice little capital A there for the Azores. So my guess is that's probably going to wind up becoming a tropical storm before any of the other ones do. Now let's see how long we go into the month of September before something happens.
Well, I know that the Hurricane Center for at least two out of these three systems has 80% probability of development within the next 3 days or whatever. So if we go much beyond September 2nd, that'll be a big surprise, I think, considering that at least one of these systems should rapidly take shape into some kind of a tropical storm within the next 24 to 48 hours.
You would think. Meanwhile, back home, pretty nice day overall. The dew points, except for eastern Long Island and southeastern New England, where the dew points were kind of stubborn. I noticed this afternoon around 2 o'clock that the dew points there were still sitting in the low 60s, but everybody else dropped nicely into the low 50s with dew points. Temperatures topped out in the low to mid 80s. Newark did not go to 90 degrees today.
Novelty night.
Yes, well, they set a record yesterday. It was the 18th time in the month of August, which is the most ever in the month of August, with records at Newark going back to 1931. So they did not go to 90 today, and August is over with. So now we're going to be we're into 8 minutes. We will be at Greenwich midnight Greenwich time. Not a whole lot happening, by the way, in terms of showers and storms. We've got some stuff going on in southern Georgia, northern Florida, also back into parts of Texas tonight, and we'll check out the radar this evening. There are actually also some scattered thunderstorms running across I-90. Looks like a cell just moved through Syracuse and moving eastward, and another little complex there approaching or may go just north of Albany, and further north up the Northway near Plattsburgh, seeing a few showers and storms there. Also, a line has now cleared eastern Maine. Otherwise, it's absolutely nothing all the way down until you get to southeast Georgia, northern Florida, where we've got showers and thunderstorms. I have to tell you, Joe, it was a beautiful day here topped out at 80 degrees. The dew points dropped down into the 50s uh, after once the sun came up. It was a little humid this morning, but once the sun went to work, the dew points just plummeted, and it was just an absolutely delightful day, I have to say. Meanwhile, we've got some showers and some storms in Texas, some heavy downpours. Nothing severe, though. There are some flash flood warnings. You see the green boxes that have popped up this evening in and around, I'm guessing that's Lubbock. There, or Midland, Odessa. I always forget which one is further south. And then Amarillo is outside of all of this. And some scattered activity in parts of New Mexico, eastern Arizona, just a couple of showers. In Colorado and the eastern half of Colorado, in and around Denver, we're seeing some rain showers there and some heavier thunderstorms to the east. And then you've got some stronger downpours and some thunderstorms from northwest Kansas, northeastward into northeast Nebraska. The Storm Prediction Center is actually going to have a bit of an easier time of it the next several days. Outlining from earlier today a couple of small areas of marginal risk well up into upstate New York and also in eastern Maine. Those have pretty much played themselves out. The marginal risk in the area from northeastern Colorado into Nebraska, we saw what's on the radar there. Otherwise, it's general thunderstorms scattered across the Gulf states. No severe weather forecast for tomorrow, just some general thunderstorms in the deep south and also back in the southern plains and even into the northern plains. And for day 3, which is Friday and Saturday, we see the whole northeast and mid-Atlantic states back into the Ohio Valley, nothing. And also from the northern plains to the southwest out to the west coast, nothing. So fairly quiet. A lot of people I know were disappointed last night, Joe, with these showers and thunderstorms that revved up when they moved across Pennsylvania and upstate New York, and right on schedule. They fell apart. The funny thing was they fell apart just as they got close to the coast, and then they started to rev up again when they were in southeastern New England early this morning. So that whole zone in between got nothing. It was just it was a conspiracy theory at work for sure.
We had about a quarter of an inch here, which is about as much as we have received in about the last 5 or 6 weeks in one sitting. And that certainly is not going to do my grass. I mean, every little drop helps, but I mean, the grass is for the most part quite brown, and we could have used a lot more in the way of rain. But again, what are you going to do?
7-day rainfalls are an absolute snooze fest from Maine to North Carolina. We're talking about mostly a quarter of an inch or less, and in some cases, not a drop being indicated for much of Maine and portions of Virginia. Also, very little, if any, rain in and around the Great Lakes to the middle Mississippi Valley. Kind of loaded with rain, several to 6 inches of rain over the next 7 days in Texas, in south central and southeastern Texas, and in South Texas. Looks like some tropical moisture getting involved there. But it really lightens up considerably as you go north and west of there to the Central Plains, and then it just shuts down throughout the northern plains and back over to the west coast. So the drought continues at least for another week.
We've gotten through it this far. What else can I tell you?
No, exactly. Now I'm going to do something interesting here. Let me see if I can pull this off. Okay, where is it? So we'll probably have to use the North Pacific. And let's do, oh, we might as well do the PWATS, the precipitable water. Now, I'm just looking at this for the first time, but there's a couple of things that going on, Joe, that I thought were kind of interesting, at least as far as the longer term is concerned. Now, if you look on the lower left, you can see the Category 5 hurricane or typhoon that is moving southwestward and then comes to a grinding halt, and then it starts to turn northward and passes west of Japan and actually strengthens again Does it get down? It gets down to a 918 on the model here. Then it sort of slowly fills to a 948, and then it runs up into eastern Russia, and becomes this rather deep non-tropical low, and then it moves eastward into the Aleutians, and ultimately it forms, or at least on the GFS, it moves it into the Gulf of Alaska, and then it keeps on moving. I thought the European was kind of interesting with this, because the European, if I could be so bold here to take the European out, the European has a fairly large complex of lower pressures out in the Aleutians. By the time we get to September 10th, it's got this big high in the Gulf of Alaska, and then a trough in the west and some ridging in the east. But I kind of looked at this and I thought, if this does recurve into the westerlies the way it's being advertised, I wonder whether it could get interesting down the road if there is a tropical system in play somewhere in the Atlantic. So the GFS is having none of this, by the way, but the European I thought was pretty interesting, because it starts to drop this trough down into the west, and then it's got this weak trough in the Ohio Valley with a south-southwest flow along the eastern seaboard. And what was kind of funny about what the European is doing is the thing in the central Atlantic now, Joe, never develops very much, if at all, on the European. Maybe a depression or a weak tropical storm. And you see it here. This is on Labor Day, that 1007 low that's north of Puerto Rico. It doesn't get picked up the way the GFS picks it up and then kicks it out to the east. It sort of meanders it up along about, say, 65 or so, and moves it very, very slowly northward. And at the same time, you've got some sort of frontal boundary along the east coast with some rain being indicated by the European. So I thought that was sort of interesting with the way the upper air is. I mean, at the end of the day, it may not matter much. We saw something like this back about a month ago, and it turned out that the tropical system completely fell apart. But when I looked out in the North Atlantic, the European actually takes something off the African coast sometime next week, and it's got a hurricane at like 15 and 45. So, I don't know. I'm just sort of thinking out of the box here about what will happen down the road if that trough that's in the west suddenly decides to progress eastward. You can see it here on the Atlantic view. And you see the ridge out in the Atlantic, so it would kind of argue that if that European is right about this system late next week, it's going to get cradled under that ridge and move west or west-northwestward. That could find itself somewhere off the southeast coast by, let's say, mid-month. I know this is long-range stuff. I'm just kind of using my imagination here, looking at what the upper air looks like. And it makes a bold assumption that the European is going to be correct on this, which may be totally wrong. But I thought it was interesting enough to at least showcase that.
What I thought is that the system that is several hundred miles to the east of the Leeward Islands right now is handled a lot differently on the GFS versus the European. Now, the GFS takes that system, moves it progressively along to the west-northwest, intensifies it, and then kind of kicks it out and away from the eastern United States. Meanwhile, the European takes apparently that same system, and what it does with that is that it kind of moves it along, but very slowly. In fact, so slowly that by the time we get to, I'm going to look at it myself over here. I mean, by Labor Day, it would be north of the Leeward Islands, and then it continues to drift slowly but surely. In fact, it actually becomes stationary for a while, right around the 5th and 6th and even the 7th of September.
Well, I think the reason for that, I believe, is the fact that the GFS keeps trying to develop this into a strong tropical storm or even a minimal hurricane. But if the European is correct that this is a much weaker system, it's probably going to go more west rather than go north. So it sort of makes sense to me that the European is doing what it's doing because it's not really developing it in the way that the GFS is.
Right, and while in fact by 240 hours, that would be September the 10th. That system would be located, I would say, about 500 or 600 miles due east of Florida. Now, there is a trough that is coming in across the eastern United States, so that, in all likelihood, would probably, like a big whisk broom, push that system out to sea. On the other hand, the European, after that system goes by, they've got yet another system in the mid-Atlantic and yet another system moving off the African coast. So regardless of what model guidance you're looking at, Joe, one thing that can be agreed upon is that once we get into September, the tropics are going to finally rev up very rapidly. And we're going to have a lot to talk about, I think, in the tropics in the next week or two.
By the way, here's the hurricane tracking, the spaghetti plots, as they are known. I was down at the dog park today with my friends. God bless them. They're very weather savvy here. They really are. And one of the guys that I'm friends with says, "Well, I notice that there's a bunch of tropical depressions getting ready to form out there, and the spaghetti plots are showing." And he said the spaghetti plots, I nearly fell off the bench, which it was just such a, I didn't expect that. But if you look on the spaghetti plots, the one thing I will notice is the fact that if you look at that, the tracks of the models in the darker blues there, I'm not sure what models those are. That's the UKXI, the UKMI, and the EGBI. So I don't know what that stands for. I'm guessing UK is the UK, something out of the UK Met. Maybe it's an ensemble member of the UK Met, the XI being the 11th member. And what is MI, Joe? 101?
You got me, Joe.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, I don't know. But the thing is, I'll bet you that if you looked at this in terms of what kind of strength this had, this is probably one of those weaker tracks where it winds up going further west. I mean, this one actually takes it west of 70. The other ones, you have two of them that recurve it between 65 and 70, and the other ones all recurve it inside of 65. And on the intensity guidance, you still have, I mean, they still try to have most of the models have this as a tropical storm within 24 hours. And then you have a few of them that take it up to a Cat 1 and a Cat 2, and you've got one that goes all the way up to a Cat 4. I doubt we're going to see that happen. But I would think that if we were going to wind up seeing something with the more developed GFS solution, that you would probably have already seen this thing become at least a tropical depression, if not a tropical storm. 93L is the system that is out in the central Atlantic, and you can see it here. Here are the I love when the plots are all on top of each other and you can't make heads or tails of what's going on. I mean, this is pretty far north. This is in between 38 north and about 44 west. I mean, it's way out there. And the intensity models on this one, actually, a whole bunch of them make it a tropical storm, and a whole bunch of them make it between a Category 1 and a Category 2 hurricane from 72 hours on. So, those systems in the Central Atlantic, they're throwaway systems, but oftentimes they can kind of divert the overall pattern somehow. They do like to do that. So at least from that standpoint, it's probably worth paying attention to just to see how it impacts everything else around it.
It would be interesting to see what and all of a sudden just popped out of my mind what I was going to. Yeah. Oh, have you checked out what the Canadian is doing with these systems?
Oh, well, we've
looked at the GFS, we've looked at the European. Now we have to see, now to make it even more confusing, we have to have the Canadian model.
Well, why not?
The CPC come in.
Let's look at the gem, and it's a real gem. Yeah, I mean, look, the Canadian also does very little with the system in the Central Atlantic now. It really wraps up the Atlantic system in a tight little ball, the one in the central Atlantic. The one off the African coast it moves north of the Cabo Verde Islands and just disappears. So let's see what happens down the road. Yeah, the Canadian kind of follows the European more, Joe. It's got it, it's got it maybe south of where the European has it, but it does have it as a strong tropical storm at the end of its forecast period. It has it completely missing the troughing in the east. Meanwhile, it brings something else out on Monday off the African coast, which it rapidly develops. And this is what the European was doing, which it rapidly develops into a strong tropical storm by the end of next week. So the Canadian and European are on the same page with this, which, as we have been told by Tony Gigi, that when the Canadian and the European are doing the same thing, it's probably a good idea to pay attention. Now look at this upper air too. It's not that different from what the European has. This is in 10 days, so obviously we're going to see some differences in time. But you've got an upper low sitting somewhere in Missouri. You have this sort of light southerly flow along the east coast. Here's your first system. Here's your second system. It's pretty interesting here, Joe. You take a look at this. It's like, how does this get resolved?
I don't know, and that's why we come back here every night to get a little closer to resolution. Right now, it's kind of like a dim resolution. We'll see how this all pans out in the days to come. Somebody on the chat board here mentioning Rick B saying after Labor Day, if it doesn't go left of Bermuda, it's out to sea. Well, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Bermuda is this little cluster of islands out in the Atlantic Ocean. It's amazing to me how often if they don't get hit directly, how closely these storm systems go wavering by. I guess, based upon climatology, when they do recurve away from the U.S. coastline, inevitably they're going to come close to Bermuda.
And what's actually even more amazing, I forgot, what was it, Gonzalo? Hurricane Gonzalo was like a Category 3 or a Cat 4 that went over Bermuda. I don't know how many years ago it was, but I do remember what stood out to me was that they showed the damage, which was pretty extensive, and then they showed Bermuda a week later, and they had and it was as if it never went through there. It was amazing how quickly they went out and just cleaned up the mess and got everything back in order. That stood out to me. Like a week or two later, they showed Bermuda. It's like, there was you never would have known that there had been an almost Category 3 or an almost Cat 4 hurricane. Meanwhile, we're enjoying relatively quiet weather across most of the country for the rest of the week. The dew points are going to stay low, probably into Saturday early anyway. And then they'll come up on Sunday. We've got a cold front that's going to get close with maybe some showers and thunderstorms late in the day Sunday. Um, I don't know how much you want to put a bet on this. It could be more than likely it'll be another one where some people get it and most people don't. And then that goes out. And then on Wednesday, there's some moisture coming out of Texas that runs northeastward and brings some rain in for the middle part of next week. We'll come back to this tomorrow where I'm sure it'll be gone. And after that, it's dry. And then another front on Monday, September the 12th, with some showers and thunderstorms. And then after that, nice big dry high builds in behind that one. So except unless we do get some sort of tropical activity to suddenly start revving up, it's going to be pretty much wash, rinse, repeat, I guess, from what I'm seeing.
Miss Ballerite, by the way, in answer to your comment about Gonzalo, Hurricane Gonzalo, says Bermuda is probably on top of building codes and infrastructures to withstand hurricanes. So I guess that's true. I don't know if they could do it if you do like after only about 1 or 2 weeks, but anyway, that's a good point to bring up here.
By the way, there's another super chat hit. I can't see it. I see Steve LaPointe's, I see Ken Musillo's, but there's one more, Joe. I don't know if you can see it or not. But whoever it was, Leon Probitsky hitting super chat tonight. Thank you very much, Leon. Most appreciated as always.
I'm trying to figure out what that is. That Leon on his, he always picks out the most interesting, I guess, GIFs or icons or whatever. It looks like a green pear blowing a New Year's Eve whistle or something.
Yeah,
Any case,
where does he find those things?
yeah.
Okay, so let's get let's see, Briller Jeopardy tonight, which I have. And the chairman sent this over yesterday. So if everybody in the studio audience would like to play along, we can do that. So, because I can see your chats almost immediately. There's no long delays anymore. So, with that in mind, actually, this is going to be for the chat board. So, the first question is, what Major League Baseball team won the most World Series between 1980 and 2000? What Major League Baseball team won the most World Series between 1980 and 2000? I'm thinking, Joe, you probably know this. Okay.
Most definitely, it's not the Mets. The Mets haven't won anything since 1986.
Well, we have some answers already. Steve LaPointe saying Yankees, Christinapedia Braves, Johnny Quest Yankees. Christinapedia now goes to Yankees. Alfred K. Phillips putting in. Oh no, he says Davis getting cold up. Yes. David Schwartz Yankees. Chuck Cardillo Braves. Tom Contino Yankees. Keith James II says the Dodgers. Robert Hill. We should play checkers, says Robert Hill. Braves from Frank Riccio. Dodgers from Northern Grace. Latex Dreams Blue Jays. Yanks for Ken Musillo. The Astros from Robert Hill. Owen Daniel Yankees. And Steve LaPointe says the Braves only won one. The answer is, for those of you who said Yankees, that is the correct answer. The next question. What team won the most Super Bowls between 1980 and 2000? What team won the most Super Bowls between
By the way,
1980 and 2000?
By the way, Joe, you know that I've been holding on to this, a Don Leo cigar.
Oh yeah, I know.
Since 2000, and I said I'm only going to smoke this if either I win an Emmy, and now of course that's off the table because I'm not into television anymore, or when the New York Mets win a World Series. So once again, for the first time since 2015, the Mets have a shot. And if it happens,
would you do me a favor? Would you do me a
yeah.
favor? Put that thing in a Ziploc bag, and then and then go to your local cigar store and get a little humidifying packet. It costs like a couple of dollars. Put the humidifying packet in the Ziploc bag with the cigar, and then seal it. Because if you don't, it's just going to disintegrate into dust by the time by the time.
Really?
Yes. So, and you don't want that. So just the idea that you've had that thing just sitting out there dry and that you're going to smoke it is turning my stomach. Oh, you have to
20.
Bring it back to life, Joe. Do it. Just go ahead and do what I suggested. Okay, next question. Oh, we haven't resolved this question. Who won the most Super Bowls? And starting with,
I love Steve LaPointe. He says LMAO Jets.
Yes, exactly. Christinapedia says the Giants. No. Steve LaPointe says the Patriots. No. Miss Fallerite says Denver. No. Chuck Cardillo, Patriots. No. Rich Rothmansky, Steelers. No. Keith James II hits it with the 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers who have won the most Super Bowls in that time frame that I just had previously mentioned. Now, question 3: what was the biggest selling record album of the 1980s? The biggest selling record album from the 1980s.
Barry Manilow.
Now let's see. Let's give another second or two. Keith James says Thriller, Michael Jackson, Northern Grace, Thriller, Christina Pedia, Thriller, Brett Wiener, Thriller, Steve LaPointe says Queen, Chuck Cardillo says Thriller, Johnny Quest went with Journey, so did Leon Probitsky. David Carter had Thriller, Financial Times 2022, Thriller. Michael Jackson from Tim. Michael Jackson from Jason Schaefer. By the way, happy birthday, Jason Schaefer. I meant to say I saw it was your birthday yesterday, and I forgot to mention it on the show. So happy birthday. One day late. Thriller from David Schwartz and Frank Riccio. I don't know what Escape is. Leon, I don't know what the Escape is, if that's Journey. Thriller is the answer, by the way. Michael Jackson's Thriller. And the next question. What was the minimum wage for most of the 1990s? What was the minimum wage for most of the 1990s? And for television, it may still be this amount. The minimum wage in the 90s. David Schwartz says 5.25. Christina Pedia 4.25. Steve LaPointe 335. Keith James 4.25. Pat BLD BFD 7.25. Rick B at 350. Leon at $6. Johnny Quest at $7.50. Christina Pedia says no, 4.91 and 4.25 and 92. $6.25 for Robert Hill. The answer is, everybody's putting their guesses up. The answer is, for most of the 1990s, the minimum wage was $4.25. Now, let's see who's the quickest on the chat board to name the U.S. presidents in order from 1980 to 2000. Okay, so you have to name the presidents in order from 1980 to 2000. And they're still looking at the minimum wage. Alfred Phillips, 523. Now, you know what? There's the state minimum wage and then there's the federal minimum wage. So, they're not always the same. Keith James says Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton. David Schwartz is Carter, Reagan, Bush Sr., and Clinton. Robert Hill says he's too tired to answer rapidly, and he's going to sit this one out. Reagan, Bush, and Clinton, Frank, but you forgot Jimmy Carter was president in 1980 before the election. And,
can you believe he's still alive?
And by the way, doesn't live all that far from me. I mean, he's not down the block. He's at least several hours drive southward, but pretty close. And I think Rosalind Carter's birthday was a couple of days ago. She's either 95 or 96, and they're still building homes for people that can't afford homes. I forgot what the name of the group that they're part of. Let's see. So the answer is Carter, Reagan, Bush, and Clinton. And the bonus question: how much was gas in 1980? How much was gasoline in 1980?
I know when I moved up here to Putnam Valley, it was like $1.50. In 1980, that was about 20 years earlier. It had to be close to $1. What, 105, 110, something like that?
Or? Everybody so far is keeping it under $1, except for Rick B at $1.59. Tim says 213. Miss Fowlerite at $1.25. Owen Daniel at $1.20. Leon at $1.25. Brett, and of course it does depend on what state you lived in, but the average price is. I'm thinking David Schwartz. We're probably talking about the average price in the United States, and the answer to that is. Hold on, I had it here in front of me. Now I lost it. $1.22, $1.22 a gallon. Now, in 1980, okay, a buck 22 a gallon. If you adjust for inflation from 40 years ago, that would easily be, 12 or $13 a gallon um, today. So the fact that right now, at least for me, Joe, I could have paid if I used my 20 cents off from the supermarket that I shop in from time to time, 20 cents off a gallon, I would have paid what are they, 212 to 292. But I didn't get gas yet. But I could, if I go tomorrow, I'll probably pay around 292 a gallon here. And most of the gas stations here, because this area has the lowest gas prices in the state, and they're mostly right now between say 308 and 320 a gallon.
Well, gas has come down pretty good. Where I live here in Putnam Valley, the local Getty station, 375 per gallon for regular.
Oh, luxury.
Yes.
Luxury. All right, that wraps it up for tonight. So now we got this whole chat board thing, and for the most part, got all the technical stuff fixed up. We are rolling right along. So tomorrow night, I'm going to tentatively schedule it right now for 7 o'clock. Joe's not going to be here, but Bill Goodman will be here, which is great because he's going to, do some talk hurricanes and he'll even talk wintertime because he loves talking about wintertime too. So that's tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So you enjoy you and your wife, your lovely wife, enjoy yourselves tomorrow night and have fun.
Thank you, Joe. It's been a pretty wild and interesting 38 years. And all I could say is if I could have met with God, the week before I got married and then gave him a list of all the things I wanted in a wife, he couldn't have done a better job than to have me with Renata for these 38 years. So we'll have fun, and I guess you and I will be back on Sunday, right? 11 o'clock?
Sunday at 11. Well, let's make that tentative too. I have to see what's going on this weekend. If I got the grandkids coming up this weekend, I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know. So we'll see everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern time, folks. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.